Hello and welcome back to FTB Interactions. So yesterday we done a little live stream and lots of progress was made there. Let me just show you what all was changed. So, first of all we built this multi-block structure from Lazy AE2, and this is effectively a big molecular assembler. We can put all of our patterns inside, and this will handle all of the autocrafting for us. This thing is modular. I think you can make it between 3x3 and 9x9. Inside we have pattern providers and also coprocessors. The coprocessors just allow more crafts at once in parallel, and the pattern providers give you more space to put patterns. So eventually we will fill this thing up. Yeah, we decided to put it above the controller since it would look better in the middle of the room, but we will try to build some supports around it and whatnot. But anyways, we also got a few crafting CPUs. These are 4 different 64K crafting storages with 3 co-processing units on each one. And just to balance things out, we'll probably end up adding the same thing on this side. We also moved all of our storage to digital. So before we were using modular storage units to store everything with storage buses. That's all been removed. We're no longer using any logistics pipes. And it's all been converted over to these drives. So this side is actually the fluids. All of our fluid drives are here. And this side over here is for items. So we have mostly 4Ks here. This one is full of 64Ks, but we did realise that we kind of run out of types, so we went for the 4Ks instead. And there's also been some changes to this room through here, where we managed to clean up all of these temporary machines over here. This is all gone, and it is looking a little bit bare now, but we will fill up the space. There was actually a suggestion of putting a stairway in the middle here, which we may do, leading up to a second floor somehow. So all that remains of the temporary setups is just this little line right here. And this I've just been slowly chipping away at, removing one machine at a time, and I'll keep doing that probably between the episodes. After the stream I did also set up this compressor which I moved from over there. This just handles our Flux, and I also set up these fluid solidifiers on the end. This one here is for making glass. We have rubber bars, rubber sheets, and epoxy resin sheets here. And these all are controlled by level emitters. And I decided just to do this at LV since we already had the machines anyway. And again, we're just powering it by CEF with some batteries and a Spectre coil on there. One of the other things we got done during the stream was this room here, just off the main room. This is for all of our auto-crafting processes. So here we have more or less all of the machines from Gregtech. So cutting machine, bending machine, lathe, wire mill, polarizer, etc, etc. And all of the interfaces on top hold the patterns for the auto-crafting steps. So we have like plates here in the cutting machine. So for example, we can ask for stainless plates. It's going to make some blocks and then cut it into the plates. The output gets automatically put back in our system and that will complete the craft. And that's pretty much the same for all of these setups here. There's a few that needs fluids. For example, the autoclave needs starlight, but we're just importing that from our system with a pump on the side, and same with the lubricant for the cutting machine. And then over this side of the room we have a bunch of assemblers. I did add some more after the stream. So we have polytetrafluoroethylene, redstone, rubber, and hydrochloric acid. There's still a few more to add here, but I'm just adding them as we go, more or less, as I run into things that we need. And these 4 machines on the end here are for fluids. We have tin ingots for circuits eventually. Instead of doing the solder and alloy route, we're going to just do tin. We have glowstone, redstone, and sand for glass. That's for the glass solidifier over there. And again, all these fluids have their own drive, and they all just output to the fluid interface. And we also made the wireless crafting terminal during the stream. This allows us to access all of our items. Unfortunately though, it seems that it's been nerfed in this pack. So to access this, we need wireless access point with a bunch of boosters in there. And these only allow a 63 meter radius, which isn't very far at all. I mean, we can only go out to about here-ish before we lose range. It's somewhere around here. Yeah, it's out of range about here. However, to upgrade this, it does significantly eat into the power cost. As you can see, this already costs us 272 RF a tick for just a measly 63 meter radius. And I also noticed that we are drawing close to the limit of this diesel generator that we built last time. There is no more buffer in this CEU, so we are going to need a second one of these, and to do a second one or even a third one, we'll definitely need more titanium. As you seen the last time, this thing ate stacks and stacks and stacks of titanium. Luckily we have most of the casings for it, we just need the middle item. But again, that will need some more titanium, which means I have to process some more rutile. So apparently on Euclides Prime, there is actually dense titanium ore that spawns. And if we manage to find one of those things, this actually might be it right here. If we manage to find an ore vein with dense titanium, we can actually just pulverize it straight to dust and then blast furnace this, and we'll remove the rutile processing. So I'm going to go down and see what we can get. So I don't know if I just got lucky or what, but I mean, look at the size of this titanium vein. I already have several stacks in my inventory, and I already sent back over 1,000 dense ores into our system. So I think this is going to set us up for the foreseeable future anyway. Look how big this vein is, and it's packed to the brim with titanium. So in total that vein yielded us 2,200 dense titanium, and each piece of this dense ore smelts into 4 dust, and then obviously we get 1 ingot per dust. So I'm going to throw all that through the pulverizer. Once all that's finished processing, I'm just going to add it to our titanium blast furnace on the end. And we don't actually need to use this magnesium anymore, but I'm still going to keep it here. And what we'll do is actually swap out this input bus to a 4 slot. And then we'll put a limited item filter on here for both titanium and magnesium. So that way, whichever one we have available, it's just going to smelt directly into titanium. And then of course we'll also add titanium dust to this interface here. Nice, so that will eventually smelt all of that into ingots. So while we wait on all that titanium processing to upgrade our diesel gen, I would like to switch away from these Spectre coils and move into some Flux networks. This is going to allow massive power transfer, and it's going to be necessary for when we set up ore processing. So the Flux networks take some flux obviously, and this takes liquid antimatter, so I think we're actually going to look into automating this stuff. And then once we have the flux, it's pretty simple to make, for example, the controller blocks. It's just a circuit and some flux blocks, which is the flux cores, and this is just improved enderized skystone and destabilized redstone. This is easy. Okay, and I just got finished setting up the liquid antimatter here, the automation for it. This, I'm obviously not going to take credit for this. This is the quest book, once again, helping me out. There is a link to this specific guide on YouTube on how to automate this stuff. But basically, the way I understand this to work is this sensor detects whether there's liquid antimatter in this block space, and that will send a redstone signal upwards, where there's a timer that activates a piston, and this releases lifeblood essence, which will drop down, and then once it connects with the liquid antimatter, it actually forms a source block here. And then we have a builder on a clearing pump card set to this specific block, and this will basically pick up the source block and put it in the tank above. And this source block of antimatter always stays here and flows this way. Let me actually just empty this so I can show you it running once or twice. Yeah, so as you can see, the piston drops down the life essence. This forms a source block, the quarry picks it up and puts it in the tank. And this will just basically keep running on its own. So it's quite a nice little compact setup. And the reason I've done it in the void here is because this stuff can be dangerous. Like, I'm pretty sure this stuff can break bedrock. So if we have a little accident or a spillage here, it's no big deal, it just falls into the void. But yeah, this is hooked up to an ender tank. All we have to do now is put it into our system, and that gives us automatic antimatter. Also, if you're wondering what all of these holes are, I had a bit of an accident yesterday. This noodle seems to have spawned a flux rift, and there was like taint blocks everywhere. It actually destroyed one of the V batteries that were here. And luckily I managed to clean it up before it done too much damage, but yeah, it's something we need to keep an eye on. And I will also chunk load this while I'm here. And so now what we're just going to do is add a partitioned drive for antimatter. And then somewhere on our system, it doesn't actually matter where to be honest, but we have this one here for the oil, so I'm just going to put it right here. And then we can just output this straight into an interface and just hook this up to our system. And that just leaves these flux crystals, which is made in a fluid transposer. We can also use a chemical bath, but I'm just going to use a fluid transposer for this, with mana diamonds and destabilized redstone. So I've set up one of these here. We just have to plug this in. And then we'll also give it a fluid interface to accept the redstone from our system. Make sure you set an import from the back. And once this has a channel, should start getting redstone. Oh wait, hold on. I'm forgetting, this doesn't actually push fluids. There, so by doing it like this is always going to have destabilized redstone inside. And then we can come over to our interface terminal and set the pattern for 1 mana diamond equals 1 flux crystal. And then I believe it should show up here. Yeah. We can put in our recipe inside and then we can ask for the flux crystals. And those should show up in our system anytime now. So the next steps to get the plugs is actually to get some ender resonators. These processors we have, and this is just 4x platinum cable. So the resonators are going to take some resonant ender, printed silicon, solarium, and vibrant alloy. So I think we're going to start with the vibrant alloy. This is made from energetic, and these are both blast furnace recipes with hydrogen. They're both HV and both 2500 heat. So I think we're going to set up separate blast furnaces for these. So rather than making more blast furnaces by hand, I've actually set up some recipes for the blast furnace components, and we're just going to let our AE crafting do this work for us. I was also setting recipes for like the input buses and input hatches, and that led me into these machine hulls, which takes the casings actually. And these have to be with tools, and I don't really like doing tools recipes for autocrafting. So there is this assembler recipe which requires circuit 8. So we're going to use this one instead. Make sure when you do this though that you take out the circuit from the recipe, as that will try to put in a fresh circuit every time it wants to craft one of these casings. And rather than making a fresh assembler just for these things, I think we can actually share with one of these. So like as long as the recipes don't conflict, which I think we should be fine in this one here. I just have the 64K storage components here, as well as disk drives. I don't think any of the stuff in here will conflict with circuit 8. So we can put circuit 8 in this one and then just put all the machine casings in this assembler. And that way we can craft our input buses as long as we add more steel plates. But that's easy now that we can have processing recipes for everything. So to add something, we just add the block, and then we have to add the compressor recipe for ingots to blocks. And now everything should craft automatically down the tree, and we'll get our input buses. Nice. So I've set up 3 more blast furnaces, and I'm just waiting on the nichrome coils cooking up. I've set up some auto-crafting recipes for those. So all we have to do now is set the inputs and outputs for this. So for the outputs, that's like the easiest part. We just have to output on blue on all the output buses, and that just goes straight into an interface. But for the inputs, we have to ask for redstone and gold, which is what it takes for energetic alloy. And then here we're going to limited item filler for a stack of each of these. Actually, it doesn't need to be a stack. We can do bare minimum for 1 recipe. So it'll be 4 redstone and 1 piece of gold. Good, so that'll put 1 recipe's worth in the input bus. But as you can see, this still isn't working. We also have to have fluids underneath. So I've set up an input hatch on the bottom. And since these both take hydrogen, I think it was, we're going to put a fluid interface here for hydrogen. And then we'll just use fluid conduits to import the hydrogen from the interface into the input hatch. And then all we have to do is just plug it in. And also hook up the power on the back. And now we can see our blast furnace is running. But we want to also control it similar to this one over here, with the level emitter on there. So I think I'll configure the energetic alloy to just have a stack. And now that the first piece of energetic alloy is finished, we can also add this to our interface here, along with the ender pearl dust. And then that can be filtered into the second blast furnace, which is for vibrant alloy. And I think for now we're also just going to set this at 64 vibrant alloy in our system. So now this is just going to automatically cook us up vibrant and energetic alloy whenever we're low. And we never have to worry about this again. And I think also while I'm doing these blast furnaces, I'm going to set up 2 more. One is going to be for tungsten here. We need this as part of the EV machines. And then I'm also going to set up one for tungsten steel, which we made last time also, which is just steel and tungsten. So I think I'll set those up on these 2 here. Right now I'm just cooking up some more nichrome in this one, but I'll probably make this one the tungsten and this one the tungsten steel. So I hooked up this blast furnace here for tungsten, and I haven't bothered level limiting this, as there's no need to keep any tungsten dust for any other use. So all the tungsten dust that we produce, which right now is actually 0, so we're going to get to electrolyzing our tungstate in a second. But any tungsten dust we produce, we want to just go straight into the blast furnace. But before we automate the tungstate electrolyzing step, this is an EV recipe, so I would like to get our other diesel generators up before we set that up. So I think in that time that I was setting the blast furnaces up, we have enough titanium by now. we have another 200 pieces of ingots. And I did already put in the recipe for the diesel engine. So I wonder what it takes for us to request 3 of these. We're just missing some neodymium rods. However, we do have some neodymium. I think we're up to like 10 or something. Yeah, we do have 10 pieces, so we can add a recipe for this in the lathe. And then we'll also need a recipe to electromagnetize it in the polarizer. And I've also run into the first instance of us running out of space in our interfaces. However, I think if we put in capacity cards right here, or is it this slot? Okay, it's not capacity cards, it's these new items added by Trousers Edition of AE2. This does cost an interface to do it and an advanced card. It means you can put it in this slot and it opens up a whole new row. Wait, yeah, it's the top slot actually. This is actually the first time I've used these, I just heard about them. But this is pretty cool, it means we can add 9 more recipe slots and I think we can have another 18 here. So this just saves hooking up a second interface on the back side. And it means we can save some space doing it like this. So now I think we can request 4 more diesel engines. Yep, our system seems to think we've got it all. After some crafting, I did put in the recipe for the quantum assemblies, as well as these quantum processors. Okay, this looks like it's gotten stuck. Maybe there's something wrong here with the configuration. Yep, I just forgot to allow input from output side. Now it seems to be working. But it is very low on energy. Well, to fix this power issue, I've turned it off with the rubber mallet. And we're just going to fill 4 turbo diesel generators to give it 4 more amps of HV, which should be enough for 1 EV amp. So now, because these are 16x cables, I think it should be able to handle this. So yeah, now it's receiving enough power to at least finish the craft. And then once we build these other diesel generators, we can have a dedicated EV line for machines like this, and also our tungstate processing. Okay, so I built the other 1 diesel generator here and placed the other 3 that I've crafted. However, as you can see, this is missing some blocks from the multi-block. Primarily these engine intake casings, which take rotors, medium pipe, and the rotors also take rings. So I think before we make these, I'm going to set up some automation for medium pipe, as we use a few different types of medium pipe. So it's going to be used in other different materials. We can also set up a assembler for the frames. And then I guess one for rings, an extruder for rings. However, to do all of that automation, we are going to need some more interfaces. I think I've only got 1 left. Yeah, I'm down to my last interface. And the recipe looks like this for it. So I've added another polyethylene assembler in order to craft the interfaces. And one of the components of that stuff is formation cores and annihilation cores. And so I added a recipe in the laser engraver for those, which means we should be able to request another few interfaces to get us going. So I've built us 2 more extruders, placed the other one already, and I just wanted to show the way that I'm doing these interfaces on top of all of our machines. I'm giving them some names so that they show up in the interface terminal. So the way I'm doing my naming is I'm doing machine name, and then if it's got any sort of mold or fluid, in this case it's going to be for medium pipe, and then the tier of the machine is going to be HV. So like you can see here, I have this one at extruder ring HV, and this one is extruder medium pipe HV. We can just place this one, make sure to allow input from output side. So you hit it with the screwdriver, and then we put the output face back to the top, turn on auto output, and then we'll put our mold in, which has to be for medium pipe. So now we can just add in all the recipes for the pipes and the rings in the extruder. Unfortunately, we're still a little bit titanium short to make our intake casings, but I have went ahead and hooked up all the filters for the inputs for lubricant and oxygen on all of our diesel generators. However, that brings us on to the issue of outputting this power. We are going to switch to Flux networks obviously, but in terms of transporting GT energy, the EV cable is Inderium at this tier. So Inderium takes some helium, pyrotheum and Inderium dust in a blast furnace. The helium we already have from our infernal deconglomerator. We have quite a bit of this backlogged by now. However, the pyrotheum and Inderium dust we're not actually producing yet. So let's do the pyrotheum first. And I think the best way to get pyrotheum is from the primal enriched egg. And this chicken is very, very easy now that we have blue vitriol water solution. However, we do need mana dust, which requires 1 of each of these dusts, plus some unstable mana. So let's start with this. and then we'll craft the chicken. Actually, instead of getting distracted anymore, I'm going to finish off the flux plugs and points. So I made a few enderman heads in our alchemical matter infuser. I have about 2.5 stacks of this stuff. All that we're missing for our ender resonators is a bit of resin and ender. The vibrant alloy we already done, the silicon we have, and we just need some solarium, which is nitrogen, netherite, and soul sand. And from what I can see, we don't actually need a whole ton of this stuff. There is some Ender IO machines that will use this, but in terms of like in-game stuff, I don't see any reason to fully automate this, so I think we're just going to batch craft this. And luckily we do still have some netherite here. So I'm just melting down the rest of our netherite scraps into netherite ingots, and then I'm going to throw this through the blast furnace with some soul sand. And then once we have the solarium, we also need resin and ender. And resin and ender we're actually going to be using in a few different places for this Enderium dust for one. So I would like to have it access to our system, so we're going to set it up next to all of the other fluid extractors here. So I made another one, and we're going to filter this for ender pearls. And then I've also configured a new partitioned storage cell for our resin and ender. So now all the resin and ender is going to go into our system, and we're just filtering this with the level emitter, same as we did with all the other ones. And now we can put all those together in an assembling machine. I don't think I'm going to fully automate this process. I'm just going to be content batch crafting it, although, I don't know, we'll see. But right now I've just stuck this little assembling machine for resin and ender. And this will give us our ender resonators. And then with these, I've already put in the recipe for the flux plugs. So we should be able to request one of these flux points. They are fairly expensive, but we don't need that many of them, to be honest. And apparently this is stuck at cable. Yeah, it looks like we can't use the rubber recipe, unfortunately, for platinum cable, unless we also add some platinum foil and polydimethyl siloxane dust or polyvinyl chloride pulp. So we will have to make styrene butadiene rubber. But I don't really feel like doing that right now. So I think just to get this recipe finished off, we're going to add some platinum foil and polyvinyl chloride pulp. We do have some more platinum, luckily, but we are running out, so we may have to find another source of platinum. And I think for that we're going to have to kill the Chaos Dragon. It looks like it works just with foil. Okay, so we'll keep that in mind for the future then. We do have to do some styrene butadiene rubber. But now I think that we have the platinum cable, I think we can request our flux points. Alright, nice. This also might be a quest. No, it looks like it wants us to make the controller block first. So I guess we'll make this also. So there is the controller, for the flux controller. We will also need another flux point to make into a plug. There's the quest for it. So this gives us some free flux cores and... oh, there's also some free flux points with it. And we craft the plug, I think just by shapeless crafting the point, yeah. So the flux controller lets us basically control our network. So we'll want to create a new network. It doesn't really matter, I'm in single player. But I believe I read a comment that you can actually have EU in this, which is nice. It means we won't have to use the CEFs to convert between the energy types. And then we can pick a colour. We'll do pink. So we'll create our network here. And now when we place our flux plug, so the plugs will insert energy into the network and the points will extract energy from the network. So if we put a plug on our output hatch here, we can select the network we just created, disable limit. So, but now it looks like it's not inserting any energy. I don't know if they can be placed directly on machines is the problem. Maybe we do have to go through the CEU. Let's try through the CEU. So if we put the plug on that and we switch the network to RF, is this going to work? Okay, this doesn't seem to work either. Perhaps it's just because there's nowhere for it to go. Let's try adding a point on somewhere else on one of the consumers just to see if this will power anything. So our ME network is basically the main thing we want to power so that we can add more range on our wireless. Let's try add it on our ME network here if I can find a free spot for it. Ah, so that seems to have worked. We are apparently consuming 6,000 RF a tick into our ME network. That seems like a lot, doesn't it? Yeah, I guess we are consuming 6,000 RF a tick though. It must be all those ME interfaces. Those really do add up, 34 each. Man, Applied Energistics is expensive. And yeah, we can see in this controller block our network statistics. So we are inputting 6.7 RF a tick and outputting 6.7k RF a tick. This also allows wireless charging for our inventory. Right now we're using the Spectre charger, but I guess we can actually switch to this thing, but the last time I done it I remember it being really laggy, so I don't really know. But anyways, with that I think we can add some more wireless boosters. So I do have some more crafted. I do have another 12 that I took out, and as it is right now I can't actually reach the other end of the base. I think right here, yeah, we're out of range here. So it'd be nice to at least get this room in wireless coverage. So that takes us up to 800 RF a tick for 78 meter range. And yeah, it looks like we're not quite producing that much yet. How about 42? That gives us 70 meters. And I think with that we'll be able to cover, yeah, that at least gets us a little bit further. But yeah, let's next make the Enderium wire so that we can connect all of these up together. And then I think what we'll do is put the energy injector in our Flux network. And that will just mean that we can keep using the Spectre energy for HV machines and below. And then for EV machines plus, we'll use the Flux plug as it allows more throughput and also more control with where our energy goes. So to get this mana dust for the primal chicken, we need one of each of these dusts, as I mentioned. We do already have the cryothium and petrothium, which means we just need erothium and pyrotheum. So to get the erothium dust, we need to mix brine, blitz powder, saltpeter, and redstone. So it's brine, blitz powder, redstone, saltpeter. That gets us our erothium dust. And the pyrotheum's the same, except we need blizz powder and sulfur. There we go. There is our pyrotheum. And we mix one of each of these dusts with blue vitriol water. No, it's not. It's unstable mana. Let's try this again. So unstable mana with one of each of the dusts gives us our mana dust. And now we mix the mana dust, the chicken, infinity reagent, infused ender pearl, and the blue vitriol water. Oh wait, we need 2 mana dust. Well, I gotta make another mana dust then. There we go. Let's try this again then. And this time it mixes. Alright, and this is our primal chicken. Nice. We also got a quest reward here for the primal dusts, which rewards us with a life stone. Apparently this restores both hunger and hearts every 30 seconds. Since we don't regen, I'm hoping this is going to give us just passive regen, which would be amazing. So let's check our hearts in the next 30 seconds. Hopefully we do get regen from this. So with this chicken, there is actually 2 different uses we can do with its eggs. We want obviously the dusts and deuterium, but we can also do primal mana. I think we'll save the primal mana for another time though. That's going to be used later on. But this is used in a couple of different recipes. The one we're interested in right now though is the centrifuge step. Alright, so we have a centrifuge here, getting the eggs from the roost. This is a very similar setup to all the other ones we've done with the roosts. So this centrifuges into each of the dusts which go into the barrels. These barrels have storage upgrades on there. We are partitioning high priority. And then also we have a fluid interface for deuterium, which this thing produces. I've given it its own fluid drive, so that just all goes into our system. And yeah, we are now producing all of the dusts from chickens. This is so much easier than the Omnifactory route. All that's left to do now, before I forget, is just to lock the barrels. And I think now we can make our Enderium. So to make our Enderium, we need a mixer to make the Enderium blend. Or the Enderium dust, I mean, which is platinum dust, lead dust, and resonant ender. So I've put it next to our titanium tetrachloride setup. And I'm going to take the Enderium from our interface right here. Or resonant ender, I mean. Resonant ender from here. And we'll fluid filter that into the mixer. And then we're just going to use the same interface here that we used for our all this stuff, the rutile and stuff for the titanium tetrachloride setup. And we'll run a separate item conduit over here. Limited item filter with platinum dust and lead dust. So now we're getting resonant ender. We should any minute now get the dust. And now we're mixing it into Enderium dust. And after some rewiring to enable some more channels over here, I switched this out for some dense conduit. To handle the output of this thing, I'm actually going to put a storage bus similar to what we done with the infinity dust, rather than using level emitters, as I think this is just a little bit cleaner, and it means that if the system goes out, we won't end up with a billion Enderium dust and use up all of our platinum. So when we hook this up, I've got this set to extract only. I don't think that actually matters since we can't insert into the export side of the machine. but we are actually out of lead dust, unfortunately, but this system will be set up so that when we have ore processing and things, it will just work. So now that we have our Enderium and all the other ingredients, we can now set up our blast furnace for hot Enderium ingots, and then that will give us regular Enderium once we cool it down. So the blast furnace for Enderium has to be at least 2500 heat, which is at least the Canthal or above. So I'm going to swap this Cupronickel one that we had. This was just a manual blast furnace that we had, but we're going to make this more Canthal coils and use this for the Enderium. I may end up swapping these round and put the stainless steel one on here so that we can wall share. I'm not actually sure about that yet though. I don't know how many blast furnaces we're going to need is the problem, so I'm going to set it up like this for now. I've just thrown some more Canthal in this one, and also our tungsten one since it isn't doing anything. As for the inputs for this, we need an input hatch for the helium, and we also need a larger input bus. And then we can just piggyback off this interface and do the exact same thing with the Enderium dust and also the pyrotheum. Give that a limited item filter, and then we can put an interface directly on the fluid input hatch for helium. So now that this blast furnace is configured, I guess we don't need this one. All we have to do now is switch out the coils to the appropriate tier, and then set the level emitter. Alright, so blast furnace has been changed over. I got enough coils, and I've also just set this at 128 Enderium ingots. Again, I don't know if that's going to be too many or too little, but let's finish off today by hooking up the rest of our titanium diesel generator. As you can see, I'm still waiting on a bit of titanium, but I have a feeling we have enough by now. There we go. And we're up and running with 5 diesel generators, or diesel engines. We just have to hook them up at the back, which is what we're waiting on the Enderium for. And I believe some of it should be crafted by now. Oh, that's right, yeah, we have hot Enderium ingots, which means we have to add it to our storage bus. There we go, so they'll go into the vacuum freezer. Those will freeze up, and then we have to add some recipes for the Enderium wire. Luckily, we can actually just use rubber for this recipe, without having to use the foils or anything, unlike the platinum. So we can just add this directly into our assembler. Alright, so we have the Enderium wire running all the way down the diesel generators, and these are just, it's basically the same configuration we had before. I don't actually think these are capable of transferring all of this power, so I'll have to tinker with this. I would like to get this working with EU energy. Maybe it has to go directly on the cable instead of from the output hatch, because this does seem to connect right here. I think I'll probably end up messing with that in between episodes, but I think for now we're just going to wrap up today. We will also have to get our tungstate processed. I would like to do that sooner rather than later actually, but we did get Enderium up and running, as well as energetic alloy. We got the Flux plugs and networks up and running, and we expanded a bit on our autocrafting. But yeah, next time we're going to be doing ore processing, or at least preparing for that. I would like to do that at least at EV tier, so maybe we'll automate the production of EV machines first. But anyways, that's going to do it for today. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow for some more FTB interactions.